I love that you kind of started on the shop floor, right? On the business side, right? Because I know one of the things we talked about when we were kind of prepping for the show is you say you're bilingual, right? Kind of that combination of coming from the business, understanding the business, plus the technology side,
Yeah.
right? Why is that so important in today's kind of economy, right? That
Yeah.
combination of business plus the tech.
Yeah. I think understanding business and understanding tech, and more importantly, understanding business is critical because most IT organizations are in the business of supporting the core businesses,
Absolutely.
which is either you're driving top line sales or you're optimizing bottom line. If you're a manufacturing company or a distribution company, even in financials, you're really looking at driving top line sales, right? Or you're trying to optimize your workforce. So, understanding business and business areas is so critical because then you can have that I call discussions and conversations with your business leaders uh, as to how tech is going to help them either improve their top line, optimize their bottom line, and or like a CFO would say, how can you help me improve my capital efficiency? Because in the end, the capital they deploy or they employ, they want to get returns out of that, right? So tech is I call a value driver that can
Right.
I would say approach all of these three areas in a better way.
100%. I would think that, like, especially with big companies that you've worked for, the IT department almost ends up being like a mini consulting firm for all the businesses, right? And all the different departments, right?
No, totally, and I think and that's by design, I would say, because if IT organizations, I always say, just like I'm a bilingual, I call IT organizations have changed to being a support organization to a bimodal organizations. A bimodal organization is the ones that drive value for your businesses and also support your systems and your infrastructure behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And most organizations expect IT organizations to help drive that. And with the advent of AI, which I'm sure we will talk on
Yeah.
later, I think it's even becoming more important that IT organizations play that bimodal role.
100%. And, when you mentioned multiple different departments, right? Finance, sales, supply chain, like all these different departments that IT supports, do you see any kind of common challenges that, across functions that always pop up over and over?
Yeah. I think the biggest challenge I've seen most business leaders have is how can IT help them or technology help them drive their area. And which is why I go back to my previous comment about knowing the business and being that bilingual, because if you know how a supply chain works or a sales organization works, you are going to talk at the same wavelength with the business leaders and help them understand how technology, now name any technology all the way from ERPs to automation to now AI, how is it going to help them improve their processes, their outputs, and how they're going to actually make them money for a sales organization or help them optimize for supply chain organizations.
Can you maybe give an example of like some common supply chain problems that technology has helped to solve?
Yeah, I think most common problems in a supply chain world, and these came to light in the COVID days, if you recollect.
Yeah.
The demand went through the roof and the supply wasn't there. So the first problem that always every supply chain ever tackles is the whole demand forecasting. Is they don't know what the consumers and the customers are going to ask for. So knowing a good accurate demand forecast is so critical for a supply chain organization, so they can actually go and they can actually go and make or buy those products so they can service their customers. That's one area that technology has always been helping in driving or working to drive better demand forecast. The other area, obviously, is automation, I call, is whether it is a shop floor in a manufacturing organization or a shop floor in distribution or in a distribution center. most supply chain leaders are always looking for how can they make their workforce more productive, because I mean, you get, personally, I feel like you get the best fruits for your benefits is when you make somebody else's life much easier.
Yes.
Because if I'm a shop floor worker and I'm doing that job day in and day out, and if I was going to do that job in 8 hours, how can I do that in 7.5 hours or 7 hours? So I can actually use the other time to do some more value added work.
100%. And then you mentioned building analytics teams too, right? I would think, especially with AI coming in, like I always hear dashboards and, having all the information available so leaders can make better decisions. Talk a bit about that.
Absolutely.
Challenges there.
So if you recollect back in 2012, 2013, most companies were focused on, there was a concept called data-driven decision making, but most businesses didn't really know what that meant. And with the advent of dashboards and insights, what it meant was really giving those insights to the business. So for case in point, when I was the leader for analytics for Procter & Gamble's business at Target, our daily or weekly stand-up was every Sunday we used to get the sales data from our customer, which was Target back then. And we used to analyze that data as to what was selling, what sold last week. And most of the times our senior sales leaders had only 3 questions. What was my total sale? What was the total sales in the category? What was my P&G sales versus my competitor sales? And if there were any promotions or any kind of activities that were being done by us as P&G and or by competitors, who was winning, who was losing, and if P&G was losing, why were we losing? In other sense, why were the competition was winning? And P&G got that data-driven decision making very early on, and this is where I feel like the advent of setting up these analytical organizations, not just for building dashboards, but actually they were moving up the ladder. They were providing insights to your partners or your business partners. For example, like me and my small team back in Target team, I call back in P&G's Target team days, we were not just building dashboards or running dashboards. Our job was to find those insights which made P&G either improve their sales or find opportunities where we were losing sales. And I always say in a retail business, when you or I or anybody else from our families walk into the retail stores, and if they don't find the brand of their choice, they are going to pick something else. And that's a lost customer. And potentially that could be a lost customer, not just, it could be for a while, because then that's when the brand switching happens.
Yeah. Nobody wants to see an empty shelf when they walk into a store.
And that's why I said it all got exposed during our COVID days, when people were stacking, whether it was toilet paper, whether it was tissue papers, name it, right? There were cereals going off the shelf. There were sanitizers going off the shelf. And
Lysol wipes.
Lysol wipes, exactly. But this is why I say that the whole analytics organization has come through a full journey, where initially they were dashboard builders, then they became insights producers, I call. And now it's not just building dashboards and producing insights. It's actually being on the table with the business and helping them drive the next opportunity.
I love that. Well, and you fast forward to today, right? We have obviously AI. And what are some of the innovations that you're seeing around AI and technology for supply chain in today's kind of context?
Yeah. So there are multiple areas where AI is really helping us help improve our supply chains. One, obviously, as I mentioned, is demand forecasting has been an age-old problem that AI continues to improve their algorithms.
What would be one improvement of that? I'm curious.
So I think taking a forecast accuracy from, most companies that I've seen run around 60, 65% accuracy level.
Oh, that's
even
it.
even taking that to like 70-75%, 5 or 8% point improvement is a whole huge improvement in your inventory, because then it's all about having the right product at the right place at the right time. So when Fanny walks in her store of her choice, whether it's Target or Walmart, if you're looking for, I'm just making a cereal of a choice, either it is a General Mills cereal or it could be a Nestle cereal. You just want to make sure that you have what you want in the store that you walk in, and at the time that you walk in. And those are the critical milestones that happen in a demand forecasting, where we exactly know when Fanny's household is running out of cereal, and we are expecting Fanny to come to a store to buy those. And that granular level of data is what helps improve your forecast accuracy. Beyond that, in area of I call, as I said, supply chain shop floors, whether it is manufacturing shop floor or a distribution shop floor, as I mentioned earlier, driving productivity for shop floor worker is so important, because they have the most difficult jobs to do. Not from a process perspective. I call them as they do a monotonous job,
Yeah.
but monotony can bring in so much of boredom, and can make mistakes.
Yeah.
So there are, I call AR, so artificial reality, virtual reality, AR, VR. Google Glass is a classic example of how Google Glass has been helping our distribution workers to actually pick the product correctly. What if, I'm just going back to my example, if you ordered a General Mills cereal and by mistake a worker, a distribution worker picked a wrong product for you and sent it to your home, you're going to be a pissed customer. So improving the picking accuracies, and that's another area that has been that these technologies are helping. And finally, it's all about, I call them is, it all comes down to the circle, which is, how do you really automate some simple tasks that a human being is doing? And that's where robotics comes in play, where robotics is actually picking product. I've seen some restaurants over here, leave aside San Francisco and Austin, but even in Dallas area, where you place an order and robot comes and delivers your order.
Yes.
And in next, in an area or in an age where workers are getting more and more, or people are getting more and more educated, it's going to be very hard to find people who are going to do these monotonous activities. So that's something I would expect robotics and robots are going to play a big role.
Got it. So, with it all increasing efficiency, increasing accuracy, robotics and automation, obviously there's also challenges or like problems that can arise, right? Like what do you think is common mistakes that organizations get wrong when it comes to putting in AI, or misconceptions that they have?
Yeah, I think I always say that we need to temper the expectation of business on what AI can deliver and AI cannot deliver. I have seen business audiences, which are so hyped up that they think that AI can pretty much do everything. I've talked to a few supply chain officers where they think I can sit here on the top floor and literally watch my factories work on a big Google Glass or big TV. Now that's the extreme end of what they think.
Are we there yet, though?
We're not there yet, but we will be at some point in time. We will be.
What
But
do you think? How many years?
I would say at least a few more years, like at least 5 or 7 years, where you can see supply chain leaders sitting in their chairs, and they can literally watch either robots pick the things, robots doing more and more activities which humans are doing today. You will see that world in the next 5 to 7 years. But then on the other end is, you find some leaders who are very skeptical about what AI can do. And that's where so the first step as a technology leader is to really gauge the temperature of the leader and that leadership organization as to what spectrum they are on, and then try and temper those expectations. Because in the end, setting wrong expectations puts me or my organization or technology organizations in a wrong spot, and that's where the disconnect happens. Is we typically end up either hearing some comments like, "Hey, I thought AI was going to deliver what I said,"
Right.
like a dream that what I mentioned to you, or all that expectation is like, "Yeah, but AI didn't deliver me these things," because AI is still learning to really, and as I say, is the next frontier for AI is to replicate what a human does. I mean, most standard activities which I mentioned to you, whether it was delivering your order in a restaurant or picking up a product from a shop or from a distribution floor, those are very repetitive tasks that a robot is able to do now. But there will be a stage where a robot can think like a human, and that's when I say that the reality will kick in. And recent announcement of Tesla robots, I'm not sure if you've heard about that, but Tesla is banking on that future where I would say 70-80% of the activities that human does today can be done by a robot.
Does that make you fearful though? Like I hear that and it's part excitement, part like where's our role, right? As humans in that
I think
optimal
absolutely,
efficiency.
absolutely. But I
Yeah.
think humanity has gone through these changes before. I mean, look at it. I mean, you had horses pulling the carts, and then you got your first motor vehicle or whatever, your car. Or, I mean, first four-car ran. I mean, in nine whatever, 80s, right? So 1800s. So I am pretty sure that industrial and again, fast forward, obviously 1960s 50s onwards, you're seeing a lot more industrialization. I mean, things that were being manufactured with hand, you got machines to do it. Now this I call is the next stage of evolution, where a machine is not just a physical machine, but it's a robot, which
It's
basically
thinking.
it's thinking exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where the next frontier is how can you make a machine which may look and talk and walk like us, but think like us. And yes, I agree with you. Is for humanity, it's going to be a big change, but humanity has adjusted. I mean, things. I mean, people have gone into. People have taken different courses to study. People have found different roles to play in this new society, and people have found different jobs. Right? Change is something that is going to be constant, and I think as a humanity, we need to prepare not just us, but our future generation. How are they going to adapt to this new technology? I mean, I'm looking at Gen AI. I mean, kids are using Gen AI at school now. Obviously, everybody is going to write their essays or write their in a now look at it as like they were essay writers when I went to college, and those roles are slowly going to potentially going to diminish because that value that they offered to correct or to adjust your essays and provide that feedback, a Gen AI or an AI application can immediately provide you.
Well, speaking of talent and people, right? What do you think might be some new roles in, let's talk about supply chain, right? In supply chain and manufacturing, what might be some new roles for humans
Yeah.
in this kind of AI world?
Yeah. So I think the first misconception that I want people to understand is AI is not going to replace humanity. I mean, it's a common myth that people have, and it's very, and I understand the concerns people have because not every task that human does can be replicated with an AI machine, whether it is a robot. So what I just want to get this off of the
Yeah.
floor because in the end, uh, I think companies that are enabling their people to leverage tools like AI are going to be winning in future versus companies that are not leveraging AI or not allowing their people to leverage AI. So it is not a, a man versus a machine talent, I mean, or a competition, but it is more about how do you enable your talent to leverage AI. Just like I said, in today's world, our students, I mean, I've got a sophomore in high school, right? I mean,
Same. Yeah.
yeah, so she is actually leveraging. I mean, I'm teaching her to leverage whatever, whether it's Chat GPT, whether it is Gemini. I mean, name it. There are different Gen AI tools, but how can you leverage those to make your essays better? And that's the common way of, and that's the classic example of equipping your high schoolers or your college going kids to use these tools rather than saying I mean, tomorrow I'm not going to write anything and Gen AI is going to write stuff for us.
So, in a supply chain setting, what do you think some of those new roles might
Yeah,
be for
yeah. I
humans?
think the bigger roles I would say that are going to pop up is people who will understand, I call both the physical world and the digital world. Those are the new roles that are going to pop up, and whether they are people who understand machines, and I use the word machines very broadly over here, but machines and robots on the shop floor, and direct them. Because in the end, it's not about, as I said, it's like the robot can do 70-80% of the work, but you still need to do the 30% of the work. So the people, how we can train our talent to leverage these AI tools on the machine floor. uh, Take the planning organization I mentioned to you and demand forecasting, right? Demand forecasting can get, I mean, we can improve with AI by, say, 8 percentage points or 10 percentage points. There's still an element of, I call a human intelligence that is needed that I don't think can be replaced by AI, which is where the planning organization, we can train them on how to use these new tools, new AI tools to leverage these forecasts. Now, sometimes it can happen that the new tools may be wrong, and that's where a human comes in place, where they can correct those things. So those are the few areas I'm seeing where we can train our next generation supply chain organizations to I call adopt the Gen AI tools or the AI tools in general, then compete with them and or totally rely on them, because I'm not sure we are there yet. As I said, it's like it's going to take some years before we perfect that. I mean, perfect that AI capability.